Hi, everybody. I'm Sue Cooper, co-director of Feast for the Soul, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have this Thursday Thriving Talk, where we come together with people who are inspiring us to the awareness of expanded practices over and above our meditation. And it's about forming relationships with ourselves, with each other, and in our community as well. And the communities are in person, live, and also in person, in live, virtual, and in community. So tonight or today, I have got with me three beautiful friends. Sarah McLean, who's co-director of Feast for the Soul. Peace. Suzi von Mensenkampff, who is a massive supporter and is on every day at Feast for the Soul. Thank you, Suzi. And Brent BecVar, who is the most phenomenal gentleman, who was part of the teachings when I did Silent Awakenings with Brent and Deepak a number of years ago. And I recognised through those Silent Awakenings, which was 6 days, the power of silence. And this is what we're going to talk about today from different experiences. So I very much welcome Sarah. May I start with you?
Sure.
We've all had different experiences of silence. It may be for a day, it may be for 6 days, it may be for quite a long period of time, particularly if you've been in an ashram. And I wonder if you could just share your experiences of what's happening to you in silence and how you've managed it.
Well, I can say that I think a common experience for many of us when faced with silence, whether it's the silence in a conversation, or whether it's the silence in a room, wherever that silence may start to arise, that it can be initially a little uncomfortable. I think many of us spend most of our days with a lot of noise coming in, and really making that effort to keep the phone away, having these dedicated moments of silence, and spending more time in meditation. Whether I lived in a Zen Buddhist monastery, which was 2 years of silence, not every single moment of every single day, but we would definitely immerse ourselves, especially during these particular time periods called sesshin, for a week or 10 days of silence. And the mind wants to engage. I mean, there's a level of wanting to commune with people or with nature, and you can find this impulse to share, to mime, whatever it may be, to break the rules. But eventually the mind starts to settle down and surrender to silence. And we begin to hear a little more. We begin to, as who was it who said, is it Aldous Huxley? The infinite is found, through the refinement of the senses, this refinement. And as we quiet down, we can hear more, we can hear more, we can see more, we can feel more. And this is really, I believe, our birthright, is to be these sensitive, tuned in beings who not only hear the whispers of our own soul, but are alert to the signs and wonders that are constantly appearing in the world when we're not busy doing something else.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much, Sarah. Suzi, would you share your experience of the power of silence, where that happened and what it felt like?
I remember going to the first silent retreat. The first retreat I went to, there was an aspect of silence that I wasn't involved in. And I was sort of in awe of the people that were going around wearing the badge, I'm in silence, because I thought I could never shut up. And I was like, wow, how are they doing that? Because they were mixing with people who weren't silent, and I thought, man, that must be tricky. And then I was on my way to a silent retreat, the one in Aselamar that you mentioned earlier, Sue, Silent Awakenings, which Brent was there and Deepak and the Chopra team. And I was with my friend Cindy, and we're right chatterboxes. And in the car drive there, we thought we're probably going to get kicked out within about 20 minutes, because how are we going to stop talking? Because that's all we knew was this noise, this constant chatter, like. And I was really taken by surprise, because of how it was held and how it was set up. So it's sort of in that sort of a setting, it was set up and held for our success, like for us to be able to achieve it. And because everybody in the community had, committed to it, I think that really struck me. So everybody was in it together. And as Sarah kind of demonstrated lovely, during meal times, there was a bit of miming happening, or, notes being passed to articulate if you needed something. But over the days, then it sort of started to, the nervousness and that kind of initial kind of jittery feeling kind of left. And like the mind was active, and there was challenges, and, it was a bit messy at the beginning. I definitely can remember that. But I reckon by about day 3, I remember feeling finally sort of peaceful and calm. And we were in a beautiful natural environment, which I think really supported us. The trees, the ocean, you could just wander. It didn't matter what time of the day or night it was, if it was dawn or sunset, or, you could just really just immerse yourself in the natural environment. And that was so nourishing. And so then eventually, by about day 3 or 4, there was this kind of opening where the mind started to really, like, especially in the meditations, I could really feel like everybody was going a lot deeper. And you don't really know what the benefit of that is, I think, till you try and come back out of that experience. So for me, I didn't want it to end. I remember just going, oh, please don't get them all talking again. Like, I did not. I just loved it. I really loved it. And I was really reluctant when we broke the silence at the end of the week. Because I loved being in there. And I loved that I could be in there and not isolated. There were people, but I didn't kind of need the chatter of other people. I didn't need that sort of reassurance anymore. I was kind of happy enough in my own skin. And there's a lot of opportunity then to do journaling, to kind of notice the nature of my own mind, things like your thoughts, you can see them coming up. It's like the awareness and the witnessing. You're like, wow, that's interesting. But then you kind of don't have to hang on to that. Like you're not your thoughts, essentially. Like, so yeah, I loved it. I really loved it. I did it a second time again, and it was not as nice an environment. It was in Toronto, in the city environment, and that was fine. But I have to say the natural environment to me is kind of essential for silence, in my experience.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Profound, isn't it? Not wanting to go into silence, and then the roller coaster of that, and then not wanting to speak. It's quite phenomenal. Yes. How Brent, you were instrumental in bringing us into silence, and obviously you've done this for very many years. Would you be able to share your experiences of the power of silence?
Well, I love the silence. And I love what both Sarah and Suzi said about letting go, about surrendering to the silence, because I think, the more that we look to silence, we realize it's the natural state. It's the absolute ground of being. It is the reality. And much of the time we distract ourselves from that direct experience of silence, or being, we could say, being, with thoughts, with our sensory experiences. But the thing that occurs to me every time I'm on retreat myself, or where I've been facilitating retreat, is that, like with our meditation, there comes a point of surrender, of letting go, like Sarah was saying, where you begin to wonder what it is that we do to keep us from silence, because silence is always here. And of course, all creativity comes out of the silence. Our actual physical being, our expression, we are an expression of that silence in a certain sense. And all of the expressions that we make are an expression of that silence, a creative expression of that silence. But we always need the rest to complement the activity. And that's why meditation is so beneficial for all of us, because I like to say, we put the gear shift into neutral and just let everything settle down into that natural state of being, of silence. And when we do, we're nourished and we feel connected with that one consciousness. And Suzi, what you said too about being on retreat and silent retreat, when you start to relax into that silence, you recognize the connection we have, because I think that experience of meditation, that experience of retreat, it can be the most intimate experience that we have with other human beings, because we are that same essential consciousness, that silence. And when we share that experience with others in a retreat environment, the personality begins to fall away. And all the ways that we identify ourselves as being separate, which are of course illusory. We identify with this body because it sort of seems to be there a lot, although we know the body's changing and we make a new one every few years. And I always like Deepak's comment, the body is not a noun, it's a verb. It's just an experience that we're having. But it's not really me, we think of it as being me. And the same with our various personalities that we make up in order to navigate life and hope to attract positive attention, avoid negative attention. I call it our song and dance. we realize that in those moments of surrender, we don't need it anymore. We can just let it go. We're safe. We don't need to keep defending ourselves. So, the experience of silence can be and is an experience of liberation from all the things that we're not, all the ways that we distract ourselves from the silence that is already so. And I think that's one of the ways in retreat environment that we can just begin to observe all the ways that we keep ourselves from being in that silence. I was thinking about it earlier, that deep experience of silence is, in a way, it's the feeling of aloneness that we avoid. Yeah. From the time we're children, we don't want to be alone. We're afraid of that experience of aloneness. But when we surrender to it, and we kind of go through that fear that a lot of people have when they come on silent retreat, if they haven't done it before, there's a fear of that aloneness. And there's a great liberation when we kind of let go into that. And we realize that we're not alone, like you were saying, Suzi, and that we're all a part of that one consciousness. Anyway, I can't say, it seems absurd to talk about silence, and I find that I can blather on. I can't say enough about it, but, it's the direct experience that it's what motivated all of us to come to this Feast for the Soul, because we long for that. We long for that coming home to that ground of being, which is our essential nature. And silent retreat is such a fortunate way that we can gradually let go of all the things that keep us from being in that silence.
Thank you. Yeah, and this links so beautifully with Marcy's meditation earlier. And some of the key words are acceptance, which is what you find in silence. Trusting yourself, and being in a supportive environment to be able to trust yourself and relax into that. The sense of gratitude Marcy mentioned, that feeling of, oh my God, I am so lucky to be alive, because everything becomes more vibrant, more beautiful, doesn't it? And then the compassion as you're saying, Brent, and I know Susie and Sarah are explaining as well about the compassion that comes with it, naturally arises compassion for others and for ourselves and that wholeness. So I know when I was on a retreat, a bit like Susie, it's like, you know, I'm pretty good chatterbox really, and the blurb said, actually, please come by yourself. And I know Susie said that she went with Cindy, but I was, you know, driving in a strange country down these roads all the way to Carmel, was it? We were at in Assulamere. And it was like, and I'm going, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I going there? My car was going forward. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to be exposed. I'm by myself. I don't know anybody. You know, all the internal chatter, which I was conscious of, and really all I wanted to do was turn the car around and go back, but I didn't really. And when I got there, this warm welcome from, you know, here. So that sense of belonging immediately happened. And then what I became really conscious of during it was my habits, which which some are good and some not so, and not being quite as judgmental about and being able to transmute certain things. But the one most difficult thing that we were asked to do during the silent retreat, because as Susie was saying, some people weren't on retreat, they're actually on holiday there talking, and there was a whole group of us, was we were advised not to make eye contact with anybody because you are then entering into their space. And I found that so difficult because for me, it felt being rude, not acknowledging somebody as if they're not there and having to avert. So of course I ignored that for a little while because I'd made eye contact and people would look away. And then I recognized, yes, that's another habit. It's not a bad one, it's not a good one, it's just a habit. And that's not serving the whole. So it was wonderful. And then, so I'd love to talk a bit more about this with everybody, is I became very aware of the still small voice, the silent voice that chats, which I usually block because it's like, oh, what's that? But becoming more familiar. And I'm just wondering if I could go back in the same order, if that's all right. Sarah, would you like to expand on that just a little?
I was just thinking about this. I'm putting the quote by William Blake, who's an 18th, 19th century English artist and philosopher. And this is what he said: if the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. And Brent is referring to this ground state of being. And yes, the more subtle we become, whether it's through extended meditation practices or simply turning off the noise. See, what happens is our senses are completely designed to navigate the world of form and phenomenon externally. So when we take that inward stroke, as they call it in transcendental meditation worlds, going into that inward stroke, we begin to tune in to body sensations. You may notice this, for those of you listening, you may notice this when you're meditating. Suddenly you become aware of some feeling or pulsation in the body, and then you might become a little more aware of the sounds out here. And eventually, when you have a focus for your meditation, the whole nervous system settles down and becomes more refined and more subtle. And this is when we have our aha moments. This is when we tune into, I'd have to say, that still small voice, which is not sometimes audible. It is sometimes a feeling. It's sometimes a visual impression. It's sometimes some vision. Yeah, it's always something kinesthetic, visual, even auditory internally. And so, because we're so used to navigating the world out there, we really have to make a concerted effort to turn off the noise. I used to get into the car with my mother years ago when she drove. She'd flip on the radio and here come all the advertisements in the radio. And I said, Mom, you have a choice here. You can turn that off. As a matter of fact, I'm turning it off. So, but I think many of us are conditioned to keep ourselves company with the song and dance, the external noises, the doings rather than beings. And the more we allow that silence to permeate our conversations, our thoughts, our day, our routine. I just posted a link here on how to do a silent eating practice. I think that the more we have those moments, the more that silence becomes more comfortable and we become more refined to really live with the awareness that we are that expression of the one consciousness, the one of consciousness, which is indivisible, that lives through us, lives through you as you. It's the same one. It's ever present and it's hidden in plain sight, right inside us.
And that's the journey, isn't it? Once we know it, it's the experience and then the wisdom. Thank you, Sarah. Suzi, would you like to share anything about a still small voice or anything at all in terms of going into silence for a period of time and what happens?
What came up when you asked that was a memory from when we were at that retreat. There were two things. That feeling of safety. So, I think one of you mentioned that, like, the noise is there because we're afraid to be on our own. We're afraid of that isolation. But then this amazing sort of sense of safety sort of wraps itself around you. And it's because the mind, I suppose, is getting quieter. You know what I mean? So the anxiety isn't racing and everything has kind of been taken care of. Your lodging has been taken care of, your meals, you don't have to go shopping in the middle of it, or all those things are taken care of. So there's a sense of safety and support. So you're feeling that initially, and then, like you said, that voice can come through. And what I remember, which really stood out to me, because it was kind of early enough on my own kind of meditation journey. I'd only been probably doing meditation for about 2 years at that stage, consistently every day. What I did notice was that interconnectivity of everybody. So although we weren't talking to each other, we weren't having conversations or that official getting to know you, your job, your state, your black, we were getting to know each other on another level altogether. Because on the last day of the retreat, it was the day before that the silence was finished, we broke the silence. And the following morning at breakfast, somebody was missing. And none of us had really spent the week chatting, like getting to know each other. Some of us knew each other okay beforehand. But what was fascinating was the girl I shared my room with, whom we didn't talk for the week, looked at me and she said, I think if you speak to this lady over that lady over there that I saw you say hi to at the beginning of the week, she may have some insight as to where the lady that's missing is. And I remember looking at her going, wow, really? Like, where did that piece of information come from? And so I just kind of wandered over and I sat by the other lady and I asked her. I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know her background. I didn't even know her name, honestly. I knew she was the mother of somebody. And I said, hey, there's a lady missing. And is there any chance you might know where she is? And she said, oh, just give me a second. And it was really noisy where the breakfast was happening, lots of plates clattering and cups, and people were now chatting. And she just turned very slightly away and just took about less than a minute. And she came back and she said, oh, she's fine. She doesn't want to be found right now. But she's going to be back here by 6 o'clock today. And I was like, oh, what? Like, where was that piece of information and how did you come to? Now, I wasn't in a position to kind of, question all of that, but I went back to the other table and I said, she's going to be back at 6 and she's fine. She just doesn't want to be found by now. And at this stage, there was a bit more kind of like people were wondering where she was. They were a little concerned about her. And without going into this other story, let's just say that that's exactly what did happen. The lady was found. She was safe. She did end up back at the center at 6 o'clock. And for me, that was a phenomenal experience. It sort of set me off on the next trajectory, honestly, because I wanted to know how you can access that information in that non-local field, by just placing your attention there. And obviously I've been studying that ever since. But so that was the capacity that we had from 1 week of silence. And it inspired me. I really was thinking, wow, imagine what this world would be like if we all had to be quiet for at least half the year. You know? I just thought we'd probably resolve an awful lot of stuff, you know. It just, for me, that was really profound, like that sort of experience of the information that's available, and whether it's the witness or the whisper in your head or whatever, you know.
And you had that experience, which was like the aha experience of, and took you onto a trajectory journey where you probably might not well have gone. I'll just hold that question. Brent, could I ask you about the still small voice and any experiences that we might have in silence, or that you've had?
I did want to just comment, because I remember that experience. I was on that retreat. I remember when that lady was missing, and when she finally returned, and as the staff was a bit anxious about it at the time, because we feel very protective of everyone that's there. And, you know, sometimes on retreat, you know, people will have dramatic experiences of what we used to call unstressing, and well, that's part of the benefit of staying on retreat, is that you are protected. You're in a safe environment. You're being looked after by the facilitators of the retreat, ideally, so that you can just have those experiences of letting go and surrendering. Some people get freaked out, you know, about it. I think that lady was a good example. I remember the story. I won't go into it, but you know, she was a little afraid of that letting go into the silence, which we all have some anxiety about that from time to time, just because we're accustomed to being in the sympathetic overdrive a lot of the time. We're always engaged in how can I be safe. And part of the experience of retreat and meditation is letting the parasympathetic nervous system kind of take over the rest and refresh part, which is there for all of us. We wouldn't be able to fall asleep at night if that didn't happen. So that, to me, is the experience of the contrast between rest and activity that we experience all the time. Everything is in wave form. I like to think of it in terms of vibration, and everything in nature, everything is in wave form, which I think of as activity, rest, activity, rest, activity, rest, in everything. And so we need to have that experience of deep rest. And when we do, then we can have more dynamic, creative activity. So it is absolutely the contrast. But I just wanted to respond to something that Suzi said on this idea of deep intuition, or still small voice, whatever we want to call it, because we are that same consciousness, and we have a clear, direct experience of that over time as we are regular in our meditation practice. The more we let go, let go, let go, where the disturbed state of consciousness becomes more the exception, and the coherent state, the peaceful state, the silent state becomes more and more the rule. It's like we tune into that one consciousness that Sarah was talking about. We are all just an expression of that one consciousness, and the deeper we go into it, the more we sort of know everything that's going on. And people that are highly intuitive, people that are psychic, people that are clairvoyant even, they're just tapping into that one pure consciousness, that silence where everything is available. So I think, you know, the path that we're all on is just deepening that experience every day when we do our meditation. And certainly whenever we can take time to go on a dedicated retreat where, as Suzi was saying, everything's sort of handled for us, so we can relax that hyper-vigilant aspect of our personalities that are always wanting to stay safe, and relax into the comfort and peace of our own being. And so we're all doing this in our own ways at different times and so on. But that's why the regularity of our meditation practice is so important and helpful. Because as I said, that coherent state can gradually become more and more the rule and less the exception, which most people experience. But another thing I did want to say too about the retreat environment, and Sue, you commented on this earlier about observing the habits that keep us from relaxing into the silence, and we all have those habits. Everybody does. And so just to be in an environment where we can witness and notice when those habits of self-defendedness come up. And someone was speaking earlier about making eye contact and all that. Sue, I think it was you. We do, especially if we're a really nice person like you are, Sue, where you always want to get along with everybody and have harmony. We're all nice people here, but we really don't want to be rude, as you said, use the expression of being rude. And I think once you realize you can let go of that need to manage the dynamics of relationship, you can just let it go. Let everybody have their own experience on retreat. You can let go of some of the niceties, which have their benefit in everyday life, but not so much on retreat, to really give yourself a chance to just let go of all that stuff. It's very liberating and very, it allows for deep rest. Yeah.
Deep rest. And as Susie said, in that safe environment, feeling held. So I'm going to mention now, and with permission, you three are going to be running a retreat in May, and you're going to have a day of silence. Now, I know
only one day.
Well, who knows?
We're leading in the night before and we're coming out halfway through. So it's like a day and a half, I guess, essentially. But I'd have had the whole week silent, but maybe the next time.
And because this is in nature, again, you're creating that safe space. And because many, I should imagine, the people who are coming have a meditation practice and that deep desire to experience more. So Susie, I'm going to ask you just a little bit about this. This is not a promotion. This is really heart-based, what one could expect for a simple toe in the ocean of just a short period of silence, what that looks like.
Well, I feel like the way we were, when Brent and Sarah and I were talking about, creating the schedule for the 7 days, we felt like, it takes a bit of time to settle into the silence for people to acclimatize to, because there's a time change if you're coming from the US. There's a few things to adjust to for your sleep cycle and so on. And so just once you feel relaxed enough then and got your bearings, let's say, everything is there then to support you to really go into that spaciousness. Because I feel like in the silence we get kind of beyond kind of the constraints of time and space and schedules and things like that, so we can really open it up and stretch it out. And whilst we will have like moments where we'll come together and we'll do those meditations and we'll do different things, but really it's an opportunity to go out, weather permitting, and wander amongst the trees, or go in the sea, or spend the afternoon reading a book or journaling, whatever. Like, there'll be just so many ways to explore yourself in that silence. So and I don't think you could be in better hands than with Brent and Sarah, to be honest, because they bring like so much experience to this opportunity, so it's with huge confidence that I'm able to offer this time. Normally we haven't had silence in an Irish retreat before, because we're usually too busy nattering and jigging and dancing and singing. Like, so I feel like it will go into that, and then we'll come back out and we'll really celebrate coming back out, and hopefully it'll be enough to have enough of an experience to create the memory to really go and do it again for yourself. Because you don't have to come to Ireland to be silent. You can be silent right for the rest of the week if you want to, where you are right now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Susie. And yeah, I know it'll be very, very beautiful. Sarah, is there any last few words that you'd like to share about anything before we open it up?
Yes, I would. And yes, if there's something magical about being in silence with people, because you really get to see those habits. The habit, in my case, I have a habit of wanting to teach. So I'll suddenly whatever it may be, wanting people to like me, whatever it is, that there's definitely the habits that, we call sort of the software, the personality, song and dance, as Brent calls it. But then there are three in Buddhism. And for those of you who've been joining me for the meditations in the morning, the silent ones, there are three jewels. And in Buddhism, the first one is the community. Actually, there's no particular order. One is the community, what's called the Sangha, this community of truth. And I think when we're all kind of facing the same direction, looking for an awakening in some way, we really support each other, whether it's energetically or not, what you were talking about in those retreats. So the Sangha, the other is the practice, the getting in touch with the indivisible, permanent ground state of consciousness or being. So that's what they call in Buddhism the Buddha, because you are the awakened one. So there's the community, then there's the Buddha or you, and how you get in touch with yourself. And then there's the knowledge. And I think that many meditation retreats are knowledge heavy, which sort of satisfies, I love the mental masturbation, for lack of a better word, but I love the knowledge and the insights and the exercises. But with this, I think we're going to lean into not teaching, but letting silence be the teacher. So the three jewels, just to recap, is your awareness, your awakened aspect, the community that supports your awakening, and then the Dharma, or the non-negotiable truths of being, whatever they may be, whether it's kindness or compassion or sensitivity, whatever it may be. So I'm excited. I put the link on the chat. Is this recording going to be posted on YouTube? Well, I think so.
Thank you. And Brent, over to you. Have you got any last words that you'd like to share about coming to Ireland?
Well, I'm so excited about coming to Ireland and exploring my roots there and my mother's side of the family in Cork, County Cork, where we'll be. And really, this is it almost already is starting to feel like a coming home to me. I like too, one thing that Susie said I wanted to comment on about touching into the memory. You said, like when we go on retreat, we will have this retreat that Deepak, we did with Deepak, we called it Silent Awakenings, because during the week, people would have these moments of just like, just being totally present and being, surprised at the magic of this moment, separate from all the filters of our past experience or our anticipated desires for the future. It's just like, oh my God, this moment is so beautiful, and whatever we may perceive. So those touching in to those moments of being, those silent awakenings. Maharishi used to use the term the memory of wholeness, and the memory of wholeness, it is who and what we really are. It's not, we remember who and what we are. And so the benefit of retreat, and certainly that's going to be big part of this retreat that we're going to be doing, is to have those moments of remembering, self-remembering, not in the intellect, like Sarah was saying, but just a direct experience of being. This is available to all of us all the time. And we cover it over with our preoccupation with our self-image. You know, who do I think I am, or who do I want to be seen as being? That's just a habit. And so when we're safe enough, like you said, Suzi, we can relax that and just experience life as it is. And that's when, and that is the most nourishing experience we can have, is just being in the present moment. So it is the inward stroke, as Sarah said. You know, we let go into the silence, and then we come out and have these marvelous experiences of reality. And it's both, you know, as I said, you know, the wave form, activity, rest, they complement one another. So that's the big point of a big benefit of retreat. And we can all do this for ourselves. As the last thing I wanted to say, that, you know, we can all create a day of retreat. Maybe this has been discussed before, but just take a day like Saturday and just spend time in a natural place, get away from the gizmos, get away from the screens, get away from the habitual distractions, go into nature, maybe even just fast for the day, just take water, sunrise to sunset, let go of people for a day, see what your experience is like when you do that. And I think just even one day, you'll find, if you do this with intention, really commit to a day of silence, you'll find yourself starting to relax and let go and have more of those moments of silent awakening. So we can do it for ourselves anytime.
Thank you. I found during the retreat, and I do it subsequently, as you're saying, about going off for a day, and I have to be quite forceful about that. It's because there's others who may want to come, and it's this is for me. So that's often difficult. But the big thing for me was journaling whilst I was in silence, because what came through, I even read them now going, good gracious, I wrote that however many years, you know, 2014, 16, I can't remember. It's like, goodness me, and now that's coming into manifestation. So if ever there's doubt in my mind, which isn't that often anymore, it's like, oh my goodness, I knew that already. So, and the record is there, the experience.
Thank you for mentioning that. We didn't say enough maybe about that part, the journaling part. We used to always encourage people to have a journal on silent retreat, because you're not sharing with others, and you will have, you know, these kind of realizations, spontaneous insights about things, and you kind of want to get it out. Also, and this should be said, on silent retreat, sometimes these emotions that we've suppressed will start to come up, you know, all kinds of emotions. It's really good to be able to journal about those emotions, and because it helps me to move them and get them out. And they will pass, and they do pass. And it's really cleansing when we allow them to come out and to pass. And then we can sort of relax more deeply into that silence. But journaling is a great companion on silent retreat. So thanks for mentioning that.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank the three of you, and I'll thank myself as well for being here. And yeah, I very much look forward to joining you, actually. So I am thanking everybody who's watching this recording, and I will just stop the recording. Thank you.